Hello, my name is Jill Rabinoff, and I would like to share with you what I got out of reading the synopsis called Religious Professionals from Widening the Circle of Concern. So there's a quote at the beginning that I think is important. We begin with the premise in all of our work that the values of Unitarian Universalism cannot be realized in a system that is centered around one cultural expression. In fact, the centering of white culture and values has stymied the development of a full range of cultural expressions. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, two pillar principles invite us to: one, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and two, to acknowledge the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. Systems, policies, practices, and expressions of Unitarian Universalism that bias one racial or cultural group above others make a mockery of these two core values. And so we are called into efforts to name and change them as acts of witness to a fuller and more authentic expression of this faith. So this quote, this report came out of examining the events around the hiring of the Southern Regional Lead in spring of 2017. Accounts varied and were complex, but what emerged were patterns of inequities and abusive conditions in which ministers who were Black, Indigenous, or people of color worked. It became clear that certain changes are crucial. These are: one, barriers to entry of hiring need to be reduced, that religious professionals of color are essential to a more equitable, inclusive, and diverse Unitarian Universalism. Number two, people of color need to not be asked to work in toxic conditions, that lay leaders, congregations, or religious professionals with a history of aggression toward religious professionals from oppressed groups should be identified so that further damage will not be done. Number three, team ministry among religious professionals needs to be instituted, such a system will give voice to religious professionals of color in non-ministerial positions. Number four, specific steps need to be taken to ensure the quality of livelihood for religious professionals who are Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color, and other ministers from oppressed groups, in order to ensure inclusivity, equity, and diversity. Number five, lastly, generational and multicultural lifelong learning to create increasingly higher awareness for religious professionals should be the standard, that continued learning and growth needs to be encouraged so that those who have often been silenced can be heard and listened to. Thank you for listening.